I always thought blood was thicker than water. That family, no matter what happened, would never truly betray you. I was 67 years old when I learned just how wrong I could be. My name is Dorothy, and I live in a small town outside of Portland, Oregon. The kind of place where everyone knows your name, where the autumn leaves turn gold and red like fire, and where people still wave at each other from their front porches. I had lived in my house for 42 years. Raised my 2 children there after my husband Frank passed from a heart attack when the kids were still in elementary school. I worked double shifts at the hospital as a registered nurse to keep that house, to give my children everything they needed. That house wasn't just a building. It was my whole life wrapped up in wooden beams and faded wallpaper. My son Timothy was my pride and joy. Smart as a whip, went to college on a scholarship, became an accountant. My daughter Rachel moved to Texas for work, but we talked on the phone every Sunday without fail. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. I had my garden, my book club, my weekly bingo nights at the church. I had my family. Then Timothy met Greta. From the moment he brought her home for Thanksgiving dinner 3 years ago, something in my gut twisted. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. Tall, blonde, with a smile that could light up a room. But there was something behind her eyes. Something cold, something calculating. The way she looked at my house, my furniture, my jewelry box on the dresser. It wasn't admiration, it was appraisal. But what could I say? My son was in love. He was 38 years old and had never been serious about anyone. When he looked at Greta, his whole face changed. He became softer, younger, hopeful in a way I hadn't seen since he was a boy dreaming about becoming an astronaut. So, I kept my mouth shut. I smiled. I welcomed her into our family. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the courthouse. Greta didn't want a big wedding. She said it was because she was practical, that she'd rather save the money for their future. I thought it was strange that a woman wouldn't want a proper wedding. But again, I said nothing. Timothy was happy. That was what mattered. They moved in with me after the wedding. Greta suggested it. She said it would help them save for a down payment on their own place. She said I shouldn't be living alone at my age. She said it with such concern, such sweetness, that I almost believed her. The first year wasn't bad. Greta kept to herself mostly, spending hours on her phone in the bedroom. Timothy worked long hours at his accounting firm. I continued with my routines. We were 3 people sharing a house, polite but distant. I told myself it would get better, that we just needed time to become a real family. Then I had my stroke. It happened on a Tuesday morning in March. I was making coffee when suddenly the left side of my body went numb. I remember the coffee pot slipping from my hand, the glass shattering on the kitchen floor, and then nothing. I woke up in the hospital 3 days later with Timothy holding my hand and Greta standing by the window, looking out at the parking lot. The stroke wasn't severe, thank God. The doctor said I was lucky. With physical therapy, I could regain most of my mobility, but I would need help. I would need someone to take care of me, at least for a few months, maybe longer. That's when everything changed. Greta stepped up in a way I never expected. She quit her part-time job at the real estate office to take care of me full-time. She helped me with my exercises, cooked my meals, gave me my medications. She was patient, kind, attentive. I started to feel guilty about all the suspicions I'd had about her. Maybe I had been wrong. Maybe she truly did care about me. Maybe she truly did love my son. I was a fool. It started about 2 months after I came home from the hospital. I began feeling strange. Not like the stroke symptoms. Something different. My stomach was constantly upset. I felt weak. Weaker than I should have been given my progress in physical therapy. My hands trembled. My skin started to take on a grayish tint that I'd seen before in my nursing days, though I couldn't quite place it. I mentioned it to Greta, and she assured me it was normal. Just part of the recovery process, she said. She even called Dr. Morrison, my physician, and told me he'd said the same thing. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was family. But the symptoms got worse. I started having trouble breathing. My vision would blur for no reason. I began losing weight rapidly, even though I was eating normally. Something was very wrong, and I knew it. 40 years of nursing doesn't just disappear from your memory. My body was telling me something, and I needed to listen. One night in late August, I decided to get up for a glass of water. It was around 2 in the morning. My mobility had improved enough that I could walk short distances with my cane, though Greta didn't like me wandering around alone. She said it was dangerous, that I might fall. But I was thirsty, and I'd been independent my whole life. I wasn't about to start asking permission to get a drink of water in my own house. I was halfway down the hall when I heard voices coming from the kitchen, Greta's voice and a man's voice I didn't recognize. At first, I thought maybe Timothy had come home early from his business trip to Seattle. But no, this voice was different. Lower. Smoother. And the way Greta was laughing wasn't how she laughed with my son. I pressed myself against the wall, hidden in the shadows of the hallway. My heart was pounding so hard I was afraid they might hear it. And then I listened. "How much longer?" the man asked. "A few more weeks, maybe a month," Greta replied. "Doctor says stroke patients can have complications, kidney failure, heart problems. No one will question it. And the house? It's worth at least $400,000 in this market. Plus her savings account, her pension, the life insurance Timothy will get, we're looking at close to $700,000 total. And Timothy?" There was a pause. Then Greta laughed again. But this time it was different. Colder. "Timothy is easy. He trusts me completely. Once his mother is gone, I'll wait a year, maybe 2, then file for divorce. He'll be so broken from losing his mother, he won't fight me on anything. I'll walk away with half of everything. You're something else. You know that?" "I know exactly what I am, Marcus. I'm a survivor. Now come here." I heard the sound of kissing, and my stomach turned, but I stayed frozen. I needed to hear more. I needed to understand exactly what was happening to me. "What are you giving her anyway?" Marcus asked. "Arsenic. You can buy rat poison at any hardware store. A little bit every day in her tea. The symptoms mimic stroke complications perfectly. Tremors, weakness, organ failure. By the time anyone figures it out, if they ever do, she'll be long dead and cremated." I felt my legs give out, and I slumped against the wall. Arsenic. That's why my symptoms seemed so familiar. I had learned about arsenic poisoning in nursing school decades ago. The metallic taste I'd noticed in my tea. The stomach problems. The skin discoloration. It all made sense now. My daughter-in-law was poisoning me, and my son had no idea. I don't know how I made it back to my bedroom that night. Somehow I managed to shuffle down the hall without making a sound, close my door, and climb back into bed. I lay there until dawn, my mind racing, my body trembling with a combination of fear and rage. Part of me wanted to call Timothy immediately, to tell him everything I'd heard. But what proof did I have? It was my word against Greta's. And Timothy loved her. He trusted her. Would he even believe his old mother over his beautiful wife? Or would he think the stroke had affected my mind, that I was confused, paranoid, imagining things? No. I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. The next morning, when Greta brought me my tea, I did something I had never done before. I thanked her sweetly, waited until she left the room, and then poured the tea into an empty medicine bottle I had hidden in my nightstand. I capped it tight and tucked it under my mattress. I did the same thing the next day. And the day after that, every morning, Greta would bring me my special tea, the one she said would help with my recovery. And every morning, I would pretend to drink it while actually saving samples. I started eating only food from sealed packages when Greta wasn't looking. I began to feel slightly better, though the poison already in my system was still taking its toll. A week later, I called Rachel. My daughter answered on the second ring, cheerful as always. "Hey, Mama, how are you feeling?" "Rachel, I need you to come home. Don't tell Timothy. Don't tell Greta. Just come." There was a long pause. Rachel knew me. She knew I wasn't one for drama or exaggeration. If I was asking her to fly across the country without explanation, something was seriously wrong. "I'll be there tomorrow," she said. Rachel arrived at midnight, letting herself in with the spare key I'd told her was hidden under the garden gnome. Greta and Timothy were asleep. We sat in my bedroom with the door locked, speaking in whispers, while I told her everything. My daughter's face went through every emotion you can imagine. Shock, disbelief, horror, and finally, cold, burning anger. "We have to call the police," she said. Not yet. We need more proof. Actual evidence. Something they can test. I showed her the bottles of tea I'd been collecting. 7 of them, each one labeled with the date. Rachel held them up to the light, her jaw tight. "This is enough for testing," she said. "But Mom, if she realizes you're onto her—" "I know. That's why we have to be smart about this." We came up with a plan that night. Rachel would pretend she was in town visiting a college friend, not me. She would come to the house officially the next day, surprise everyone. Meanwhile, she would take the tea samples to a private lab in Portland for testing. It would take a few days to get results, but we would have scientific proof of what Greta was putting in my drinks. But I wanted more than lab results. I wanted Greta to condemn herself with her own words. I wanted a recording of her admitting what she was doing. Something so damning that there would be no room for doubt, no possibility of her talking her way out of it. Rachel had an idea. She knew a private investigator from her work, a man named Jack, who specialized in insurance fraud cases. She called him that night and explained the situation. By morning, he had arrived in Portland with equipment I didn't even know existed. Tiny cameras disguised as buttons, recording devices no bigger than a thumbnail. He wired my bedroom like a professional surveillance operation, all hidden in places Greta would never think to look. The trap was set. Now we just had to wait. Rachel showed up at the house the next afternoon, playing the part of a concerned daughter who happened to be in the area. Greta was surprised but hid it well. She smiled, hugged Rachel, said how wonderful it was to see her. I watched the performance from my chair in the living room, marveling at how convincing my daughter-in-law could be. If I hadn't heard her planning my death with my own ears, I would have believed every word. Timothy was thrilled to see his sister. He took the day off work, and the 4 of us had dinner together. Greta cooked, which made me nervous, but Rachel insisted on helping in the kitchen. I saw her watching everything Greta did, making sure nothing suspicious went into my food. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Rachel and I reviewed the footage from the hidden cameras. Nothing incriminating yet, just Greta going about her normal routine. But we were patient. We knew she would slip up eventually. People like Greta always do. 3 days later, the lab results came back. Positive for arsenic. The concentration levels were consistent with repeated low-dose poisoning over several weeks. Rachel showed me the report, her hands shaking. "This is it, Mom. We have proof. Let's call the police now." "Not yet," I said. "I want her to say it. I want her to admit what she's been doing. On camera. Mom, this is dangerous. What if she realizes we're onto her? What if she tries to finish the job?" "She won't. She thinks I'm a weak old woman who doesn't suspect a thing. That's her biggest mistake." Rachel didn't like it, but she agreed to wait a little longer. We decided to give it 1 more week. If we didn't get a confession by then, we would take the lab results to the police and let them handle it. 5 days later, Greta made her move. Timothy had left that morning for another business trip. This one was supposed to last a full week. Greta seemed different that day, more attentive, more eager. She kept bringing me things: tea, soup, cookies, each one laced with poison. I was sure. I accepted them all with a grateful smile and discreetly disposed of them when she wasn't looking. Around 7 in the evening, Marcus showed up at the house. I saw him from my bedroom window, walking up the front path like he owned the place. Tall, dark-haired, handsome in a sleazy way. He didn't even bother to hide, parking his car right in the driveway. I called Rachel immediately. "It's happening. Get here now. I'm 15 minutes away. Whatever you do, stay in your room. Don't confront them." But I had no intention of staying in my room. I had spent my whole life being careful, being cautious, being polite. My daughter-in-law was plotting to murder me in my own home, and she had invited her lover over to celebrate. I wasn't going to hide like a scared rabbit. I was going to look her in the eye when the truth came out. I grabbed my cane and made my way slowly down the hall. I could hear them in the kitchen again, laughing, talking, the clink of wine glasses. I stopped just outside the doorway, pressed against the wall, my phone in my hand recording everything. "She looks terrible," Marcus was saying. "I barely recognized her from the photos you showed me. The arsenic is working faster now that I've increased the dose. Another week, maybe 2, and it'll all be over. The doctors will chalk it up to stroke complications. Happens all the time with elderly patients." And then we sell this dump, split the money, and disappear to Costa Rica. New names, new lives, no more freezing Oregon winters. What about Timothy? Greta laughed. Timothy can cry at his mother's funeral and then cry some more when I serve him divorce papers. By the time he figures out what happened, we'll be drinking margaritas on a beach. I had heard enough. I stepped into the kitchen doorway, my cane supporting my weight, my phone still recording. I don't think Costa Rica is in your future, Greta. The look on her face was something I will never forget. Pure shock, pure terror. Her wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor, red liquid spreading like blood across the white tiles. Dorothy? What are you? How long have you been standing there? Long enough? Long enough to hear you planning my murder. Again. Marcus jumped up from his chair. Who the hell are you? I'm the woman your girlfriend has been trying to kill for the past 3 months. I'm also the woman who has been saving samples of every cup of poison she's served me. And I'm the woman whose daughter is on the phone with the police right now. As if on cue, I heard sirens in the distance. Getting closer. Marcus looked at Greta, then at me, then at the door. He made a decision in about 2 seconds flat. This isn't worth it, he said, and bolted for the back door. He didn't get far. Rachel had thought of that too. The private investigator, Jack, was waiting in the backyard. I heard the sounds of a scuffle, a grunt of pain, and then silence. Greta stood frozen in the kitchen, her face white as chalk. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered all those mornings of poisoned tea, all those afternoons of fake concern, all those nights of listening to her plan my death. Why? I asked. I welcomed you into my family. I gave you a home. I tried to love you like a daughter. Why? Greta's shock was beginning to fade, replaced by something uglier. Defiance, hatred. Because you have everything I deserve, she spat. You think you're so special, sitting in this nice house with your precious savings and your perfect little life. You have no idea what it's like to grow up with nothing. To watch rich people live in comfort while you scrape by. I earned this. I married your boring, pathetic son and played the devoted wife for 3 years. I earned every penny of what you have. You earned a prison cell. That's what you earned. The front door burst open. 2 police officers rushed in, followed by Rachel. She ran to me and grabbed my arm, her face wet with tears. Mom, are you okay? Did she hurt you? I'm fine, sweetheart. I'm fine. One of the officers approached Greta. Ma'am, you're under arrest for attempted murder. You have the right to remain silent. As they put the handcuffs on her wrists, Greta looked at me one last time. There was no remorse in her eyes. No regret. Just cold, empty rage. You think you've won? She said. But Timothy will never forgive you for this. You've destroyed his life. I looked her straight in the eye and smiled. Surprise, Greta. Timothy is the one who told me to call Rachel. He found your text to Marcus last week. He knows everything. For the first time, I saw real fear in her face. Not fear of prison, fear of being abandoned, fear of being alone. She opened her mouth to say something, but the officers pulled her away before she could speak. I watched them put her in the police car, watched the red and blue lights flash against my living room windows, watched the car drive away into the night. Then I collapsed into Rachel's arms and cried for the first time in months. The weeks that followed were chaos. News crews camped outside my house. Reporters wanted interviews. The local paper ran a story with the headline, Oregon Grandmother Catches Daughter-in-Law in Murder Plot. I didn't want any of it. I just wanted peace. Timothy moved back in with me after Greta's arrest. He was broken, devastated, consumed by guilt for bringing that woman into our lives. I told him every day that it wasn't his fault, that people like Greta are skilled manipulators, that he had no way of knowing what she truly was. I should have believed you, he said one night, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee. You never liked her. I could tell. I should have asked why. You were in love. Love makes us blind to things we don't want to see. But you saw her. You knew. I reached across the table and took his hand. Mothers have instincts, Timothy. We can feel when something is wrong with our children, even when we can't explain it. That doesn't mean I knew what she was planning. It just means I knew she wasn't right for you. He squeezed my hand and nodded. We sat there in silence for a while, mother and son, survivor and witness. The house felt different now, cleaner somehow, even though nothing had physically changed. Maybe that was just the poison leaving my system, or maybe it was the poison of Greta's presence, finally gone. The trial took place 6 months later. Greta pled guilty to attempted murder in exchange for a 25-year sentence. Marcus got 15 years as an accomplice. I didn't attend the sentencing hearing. I had already spent enough of my life dealing with that woman. I didn't need to see her face again. Rachel stayed with me for a month after the arrest before going back to Texas. We talked every day now, not just Sundays. The experience had brought us closer in a way I never expected. Sometimes the worst moments in life can create the strongest bonds. I'm 68 now, and my health has improved dramatically since I stopped being poisoned. The doctors said there may be some long-term effects, but I'm alive. That's more than Greta planned for me to be. Timothy started dating again last month. A nice woman from his church, recently divorced, no children. I've met her twice, and I like her. She seems genuine, kind, normal. But I watch her carefully anyway. I watch everyone carefully now. That's the thing about surviving a betrayal like this. It changes you. You learn to pay attention to the quiet signs, the questions that probe too deeply into your finances, the concern that feels calculated rather than genuine, the care that comes with conditions and expectations. Not everyone who smiles at you is your friend. Not everyone who calls you family means it. But here's what I've also learned. For every Greta in this world, there's a Rachel. For every person who sees you as a means to an end, there's someone who would fly across the country in the middle of the night to save your life. Family isn't just about blood. It's about loyalty. It's about trust. It's about showing up when it matters most. My husband Frank used to say that life is too short to waste on people who don't deserve you. I understand that now better than ever. I spend my days in my garden, growing tomatoes and roses. I spend my evenings reading mystery novels and watching old movies. I spend my Sundays having dinner with Timothy and occasionally meeting his new girlfriend. It's a simple life, a quiet life. But it's mine, and no one is going to take it from me. Not again. Not ever. So if you're watching this and you have that feeling in your gut, that nagging sense that something isn't right about someone in your life, trust it, investigate it, protect yourself. Because the people who mean you harm don't always look like villains. Sometimes they look like the daughter-in-law who brings you tea every morning. Sometimes they smile and tell you they love you while slowly taking everything you have. Be smart, be careful, and most importantly, be willing to fight for yourself. Because at the end of the day, you are worth fighting for, no matter what anyone tells you. No matter how old or weak or tired you feel, you deserve to live. You deserve to be safe. And anyone who tries to take that from you deserves exactly what's coming to them. Karma always catches up eventually. I'm living proof of that.